Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Five Lug Racing. With you as always, my name is Don Ryan, my partner in crime. We are here breaking down everything from wine country, Sonoma out in California, Ryan. What a great event that was. We are going to preview a little bit of Dover for you guys coming up this week, the Monster Mile out in Delaware. But of course, we always want to shout out our amazing, incredible sponsor, KK's Diecast community there on Facebook. Always doing incredible things with all your NASCAR diecast and memorabilia. Make sure you go check out their stuff on Facebook. We'll leave a link to his page in our description for you guys to go check out. This week, we have a diecast of the week, of course. It's going to be Connor Zilisch in his Carolina Carports 2024 Chevrolet Camaro. There's a silent auction going on in this thing right now. It is so much fun to watch this thing go up. Make sure y'all go check that out. That's going to be a hot piece to have 10 years down the road for sure. Ryan, what an amazing race weekend. I'm looking forward to Dover. Let's talk about it, bud.
Oh man, it's great to be back at it, and you're not lying about that Connor Zilisch piece, man. That's from his debut start. It's not the race win version, but it is the scheme that he parked in his first ever start at Watkins Glen. So yeah, make sure you head on over to KK's Diecast and go get yourself in on that action. But wow, what an incredible weekend of racing once again. We're done with the road races for a little bit, but yeah, those that enjoy the road racing, I know SVG does, but those that enjoy the road racing got to scratch that itch the last 2 weeks. But we're heading to the Monster Mile of Dover Motor Speedway. But yeah, we got to cover this. But before we get started, we want to welcome back a special guest and friend to the show of the Five Lug Racing Show. Coming to us is Matthew Kempf from the Haas Factory Team and the Xfinity Series. Matt, great to see you. Welcome back.
What's up, guys? Hey, first off, y'all are crushing it on social media and all your videos. It's awesome, guys. I'm proud of y'all.
I appreciate
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate that. Yeah, you're one of the OG guests of the show. So we have you and some of your other championship teammates. That you've helped facilitate, get this show rolling for us. We really appreciate that. And Matt, we're heading to Dover, and it's exciting because I'll speak of you guys for a second. The 00 team. Back-to-back weeks. You guys had a really solid piece last week, but in Chicago, you were up there dicing it up with SVG and Connor Zilisch for a race win at the end of that thing. I just want to shine a little light on the fact that your 00 team knows how to find victory lane at Chicago. You won in 2023, which was the first one there. Yes, it was rain shortened, but a win's a win. You were in position. You got it done. Can you talk about Chicago a little bit and how cool it was to win on a street race like that?
Yeah, I mean, winning the inaugural race in Chicago was probably one of the coolest things to be a part of. I mean, it's the first race there, right? Obviously, it was rain shortened, and I mean, you can't control the weather, right? But a win's a win, and you're going to take it in your career. This time, going back, I mean, it was hot, really, really hot. But I felt like it was better laid out, better prepared this year than it had been prior. Just everything seemed to flow a little bit better. Going into the race, Sheldon felt really confident. He was good with it. He liked what he had. And we worked on it a little bit when we had our practice session, and he's like, we got something, boys. Mm-hmm. So moving into the race, getting up there, racing with SVG and Zilisch, I mean, that's pretty awesome. I do know that our pit stop that we had, we came down and our pit crew members, we executed what we had to do and went out first. And I think that played the momentum for the race, for the rest of the race, and just we continued on.
Yeah, hats off to you guys in that stop. And, I think back to that and how you're able to just you had a lightning fast stop and really that track position is so important on a track like Chicago, a track like Sonoma. And I almost want to say it's harder. You need that track position even maybe a little bit more at Sonoma than you do Chicago. I don't know why it is, but that Chicago track is fast, and it seems like you are able to set up and make those passes maybe a smidge easier than a Sonoma. It's fun to watch regardless. And, you ended up having, you've rewind to the melee at Atlanta. It was a really nice rebound for you guys to come back and get a third place finish in Chicago, get another top 10 finish out in wine country. So you guys are headed back. You steered the ship the right direction at least. And, you could argue on, road courses where that may not be, Sheldon's cup of tea, so to speak. We should say glass of wine after last week, but you guys did really well with that, and it's got to feel good now coming into a track that Sheldon has run really well at Dover. Now, obviously, he's been in a Joe Gibbs car at Dover. He's been in RCR equipment at Dover, but he hasn't been in that Haas equipment. But you guys, you can speak on the Haas stuff, and you feeling confident about this weekend?
I mean, I feel like with the way Sheldon runs at Dover, we're going to be in for a good day. Last year, unfortunately, we had the rain shortened race, and we were leading. And I mean, how you make that call? You're in the lead, right? Whatever you do, that everybody else is going to do the opposite. So it was one of those. We had a dominant car all day. Cole did a great job, and we had a really fast car. But we'll take that over transition, and we'll run it with Creed. And Friday or Saturday, actually, when we have practice, we'll see where we're at and make adjustments and then get ready for the race.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And for everybody watching at home, I will be in Dover. I will be locked in on Saturday and Sunday, enjoying the NASCAR's finest that we have on the track this weekend, the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series. The Truck Series getting another week off. So on Friday, there is the support race from the ARCA Series. And but yeah, I mean, I'm stoked. I'm really looking forward to it. I want to break down, Sonoma a little bit before we dive really deep into Dover and all the fun stuff coming up there. And we have a lot to unpack actually. In seemingly a race that was dominated by Shane van Gisbergen again. There were some things that happened in this race that, we highlighted and want to talk about a little bit. Stage one, we start off and, Shane starts from the pole, 2 weeks in a row and, already kind of at an advantage compared to the rest of the field with ability. Put the car aside for a second. The ability behind the wheel that this guy has is just insane. And, we see it on display again. Don, you mentioned it in a text. I'll let you say it because, Byron was showing a little pace early and then fell off, but you had a theory behind it. What was that theory?
I genuinely think that Shane sits up front and just kind of toys with people. I think he goes at maybe 85-90% of what he could actually be doing. I think we saw more of the closer to 95% at Mexico City when he won by like 16 seconds. So fast forward to Sonoma, and he's just keeping these guys just within arm's length. And I think what Shane is now doing is he's making these guys right behind him use up a lot of their stuff at the beginning part of this race and the middle part of this race, so they don't have anything for the end. And while he's taking it easy, he can turn it up a couple more notches and check out, and he's gone. That's just kind of the visual thing that I'm seeing from these races, especially the road races, obviously. But it seems like that's something that the 24 struggled with. And then, of course, Chase Briscoe, who looked like he had the best opportunity to give Shane a run. He even said it. He was like, I've never played against Michael Jordan, but if I had to imagine what it was like playing against Michael Jordan in basketball, it's Shane van Gisbergen at road courses. So I think he's toying with people now. That's just my honest opinion.
Yeah, it's almost like that insurance commercial where he's got the dollar on a fishing hook and he's like, I got you $1. And it's you guys use it in the racing terms. Matt, I hear the teams talk about chasing the rabbit. A lot of the race teams will go out and chase the rabbit. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, what that is and how the drivers will maybe use that decoy to kind of set their own mark.
I mean, having SVG in a car, right? Let's just talk about him real quick and how great he is and what Trackhouse has done for him and allowing him to excel at what he's good at. I think having somebody like that you're chasing is ultimately, it's probably very frustrating for the drivers that are in the car, and the engineers are probably scratching their head. Crew chiefs are like, what are we going to do? But at the end of the day, when we're a couple years down the road, SVG is going to make all these guys that are racing right now that much better, because now they're going to have to catch up to how fast and how quick he is. I mean, even give it to Zilisch too. They are both very fast, and it's going to make these teams have to do adjustments, be more aggressive, and the drivers are going to have to step up their game, knowing that you have a true road course ringer, and it's something that is an art. I mean, be able to fly through a corner or S's or hairpin and just gain speed and gain time on the leaders, that's unbelievable. So I think having a driver with that kind of ability and being able to hone in and tell everybody what he needs and make it that much better is only going to also make everybody better on the other end.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, Matt, you guys are able to see his SMT data, right? I mean, that's shared throughout the entire garage. So, it's not like the other teams can't see what he's doing, but yet nobody's been able to replicate it. The only one right now, you just mentioned, Connor Zilisch. I mean, who we saw beat him this weekend, and he's beat. It's not the first time he's done it. Connor Zilisch right now is on a different level as well. I know, we're seeing his Xfinity sample size, and his first career Cup start at COTA was cut short because of an accident. But that car had a ton of pace in it. He was putting down blistering laps, trying to come back through the field. So the ability's there. But yeah, I mean, you guys are seeing the SMT data, and it's crazy because Denny Hamlin talked about this as well. It's like he's getting 0.2 in each corner. And if you add up 11 corners, he's putting down, like, how? I mean, like, it's not all the car. And that's the thing. Like, it's not like his car's cheated up for anybody at home thinking, he's doing, like, that team's doing something. No, this is an ability thing. And I think it's great that you gave him his flowers on that, because that's really what it is at this point. I think that's what's separating, him from the field is him. Like you said, it's an art.
Right. When what we had talked about prior, it's, he comes from the world of the V8 supercars, right? Which is essentially what you have now. And I think taking that and, the way that he can be super aggressive and feel the tires underneath him through the seat and just react the way that he does, I don't think he's actually, I don't think there is no point in him that he knows that I'm going to dive this thing down there and I know it's going to stick and I'm going to go and I'm going to take off. I mean, like you said, Hamlin even talked about it. 2/10. I mean, that's huge. That's massive. And just to pull away. I mean, look at what, him and Zilisch did for us in the Chicago race. Within 2 laps, I mean, they were 7-8 seconds ahead of us. And They just took, and there's nothing you can do. You're not going to catch that. You're not going to catch pure raw talent, pure raw speed. You're not going to.
And another thing I find really intriguing about not only SVG and this goes straight to Connor Zilisch also, they don't beat themselves, y'all. They do not make mistakes. We saw Shane make one mistake on Sunday. He overdrove, I think it was maybe for one time. One time. He even came on the radio and said, my bad, guys. And then he checked out again. Like, that was the only time in a 2.5-hour race that he made a mistake, and he still was not slower than anyone. So you just kind of, you put your hands up, you say, we're getting beat by the best person that's doing it right now, you know?
I mean,
You make your perfect corners, make your perfect braking zone, and you make perfect laps. And that's how you're going to pull away.
Yep.
And you're going to win.
and I don't ever recall seeing a Sonoma race or a race like Sonoma. Watkins Glen's a little smaller, but where the leader pits and then cycles out and is still able to come back and win the stage. Are you kidding me? Like, you know, he had that much of a gap on those who stayed out, so where he was able to pass Kyle Larson, which was kind of one of our little bullet points we wanted to talk about. You know, Larson stays out getting points in the stage, and you know, I feel like the move was unnecessary, and I'm just going to call it out for what it is. I have no idea why Larson gave Shane a hard time getting around him. Larson was on older tires and was just way slower, and there was zero reason to make contact with SVG.
Right.
I would think you'd race somebody, especially coming from the same manufacturer camp. I think you'd give him a little bit more room, you know, but I just don't understand. And maybe that just bodes into Larson's frustrations, because I'll just, you know, I mentioned it last week. Don, you and I have talked about it off camera as well. Since Indy and his attempt to do the double, Larson has not looked like Kyle Larson.
Right.
He had an awful Indy, you know, it just did not go. You know, he wrecked twice in practice. He wrecked in the race. He, you know, he struggled after in the Cup car since. Really, I mean, it's just something's amiss there, and I know they'll figure it out. Maybe Dover's the cure. HMS runs strong there. Who knows? I know if we were going to Bristol this weekend, he'd be licking his chops. But you know, Larson just not doing Larson things right now, and maybe that was part of it. But yeah, you know, we seen some other frustrations on the track too. Ryan Blaney won, you know, who at times is known as a little bit of a hot-headed temper. He's loose with the mouth behind the wheel, you know, if you're listening on the scanner with him. But you know, Chris Buescher and him made some contact at the start-finish line. You know, there were spins. Blaney's off track. You know, it was just not a good day for the 12 team. You know, running through, looking at the, you know, Cody Ware lost the right rear tire. I was just thankful that it wasn't another bad wreck for him.
He finally got his caution, though.
What's that?
He finally got his caution from Chicago, though.
Yeah, really. How about it? Loses the right rear tire, though. It's just like, are you kidding me? Like, the bad luck that they're having right now, just totally ate that tire barrier and wall at Chicago, and then loses one. You know, so there'll be penalty for that with that wheel coming off. You know, just going through this race. There was one other part that we really wanted to talk about. You know, obviously we know how this race ended. It was a dominant performance by that 88 Trackhouse team. Their pit stops were super clean all day. And Shane, just aside from that one blunder where he went too wide, and again, he had so much cushion, it didn't matter. You know, at the end of the day, you know, the 88 team dominates. But I want to bring up something that happened and was heavily talked about between the 54 team of Ty Gibbs and a pit stop that he had made, and the way that he entered into the box. There were people on this side of the fence and this side of the fence, and maybe some people in the middle. NASCAR said, Don, you said confirmed, no penalty for Ty Gibbs. There was no penalty in the race. And a lot of people tend to lean on the side of it was clean. But, you know, there's some level of safety involved on these on pit road, and there's none other better to speak on it than the guy that's below us right here in the box here. A guy who jumps over the wall and hurls himself in front of moving cars every weekend. Matt, can you shine a little bit of light as to why the RFK team was so frustrated with Ty and how he chose to approach entering his pit box?
I mean, not being there with them, I can't really say on that, but being a pit crew member and you have a guy that's going to come through your pit box and essentially look like he's from the overhead camera, way too close to that tire carrier. I mean, tensions are going to run high. These are guys that are also athletes. These guys are putting themselves on the line, and you have a move like that, tensions are going to spill over, and people are going to get upset. I know that even for us last year, we had somebody behind us come flying out of their stall when the way they did it, really set everybody off on ours. But, going back to this deal, it's kind of like at first you see it and it's like, man, what are you doing? But you pay attention to more like, yes, he has the right of way because of the orange line that's painted in the stall. He was over it a little bit, but he has that right of way. Also, if you want to play that too, the carriers this year is a new rule. They can be out in the middle of the box. That's something that happened this year. Personally, if you know a car is coming in, you need to back up and then move and then jump the gap. I think NASCAR needs to definitely take a look at being able to bring those carriers back a little bit for a situation like this so guys don't get hurt. I mean, for us, like we have our health insurance, but then what happens when you get hurt? There's not a players association kind of deal for us long term, right? So you need to use your head in this, and knowing that we are also having to get everything out of it because the pit stops on the Cup car are so fast. I get it. But I think the way Ty brought that car down, there was no reason to angle his left front bumper the way he did and get that close. He should not have done that. He had a clear into his box. The way he stopped, everything was fine. I think him getting spun out, there was probably some tension there, some fumes going on in that helmet. A little upset. Sure. But at the end of the day, you got to watch out for these guys on pit road. Like, there is nothing protecting us. It's us.
Right.
We have the ability that if the car's coming, we can jump. You don't get as hurt if you know how to jump and get hit by a car. But when a car, that's a big deal. I know I talked to a couple guys on pit road, and it's the same way. Mixed emotions. You're gonna have one do this, yeah, he did his job. The other is like, dude, what are you doing? You just gotta. At the end of the day, you just gotta figure out like risk versus reward. If you're that carrier standing that far away from the wall and knowing that you're gonna have a car come in and then your car's coming in, you gotta pay a little more attention to that. And we'll see what NASCAR does. NASCAR is all about safety, and with David Green, he's gonna figure out like, hey, this is gonna have to be brought up because it's all about safety for protected. Also figuring out what to do safety wise for the drivers in that situation.
Yeah, and we've already had a tire carrier get hurt and had a pretty significant injury from it at Pocono. And we're thankful it wasn't worse, with JP Keeley, who is on the Trackhouse 88 team. And, it's seemingly those rear carriers that are at the highest risk because of, how they're jumping over the walls and they're the moving pieces. I hate to say it, but it always seems to be the tire carriers that are the ones that are getting hit if there's somebody getting hit on pit road. More often than not.
During a pit stop, they're the ones that are going to be, right now, they're the first ones out. They're in the middle of the box. That way They got to go around the jackman, so that puts them further out on pit road. And then once they sweep in, then they got to come behind the rear changer, hang the tire, go back onto pit road, and come back around with both tires.
Right, yeah.
It's just situations where pit stops are so fast, tire carriers are out there, and those guys are tough. Those guys are some of the toughest dudes you ever meet.
A
little different mentality, knowing that, but you got to give them. That's where they're at.
You got to be on another level of I don't want to say crazy, but just another level of intensity to do the job that you guys do. I have nothing but respect for every single person that has the guts to run out in front of 55-mile-an-hour race cars, not knowing what's coming, because you're not even looking at everything that's going on. You're looking at your race car and your job. So you don't even have a chance to kind of get a visual of what's going on around you. I want to bring up the optics of Ty Gibbs real quick, Ryan and Matt. It's not so much that Ty drove where he drove in the pit stall, right? It's the optics of you just had a run-in with that team, the RFK team, and then you do what you do on pit road. That's where I think the head scratcher comes from as far as Ty. I mean, I'm not saying he was doing it. I'm just saying it looks like you're using your car as a weapon, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
It didn't look too good.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, and that's what raised all the eyebrows, right? And had there not been that contact on the track, it may not have even gotten the attention that it got on for all the fans to see on TV. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, that definitely plays into it. And it's just like there's certain things that that have happened in the sport. And I think back to Richmond last year. If it was one and maybe not both drivers that Austin Dillon hits,
right,
I think we have a different story, play out. But it's all about the optics and how it's perceived. And, we all know how that SMT data looked, but, and what was said in his ear at Richmond. So
right.
Different situation, but yes, optics matter. What you're getting at is a valid point. I agree. Speaking of optics, there was one other in that race. Josh Berry and Carson Hocevar. I don't know if anything's going to come out of that going forward, but man, I mean, Josh Berry just flat out cleaned him out.
He took his opportunity, man.
I mean, if he had a grudge against Carson Hocevar, it was just settled right there in Sonoma because he just punted him. I mean, like, what? Like, it's like
he didn't
try
and hide it. He didn't try and pretend like, the wheel slipped. No, he saw Carson Hocevar's bumper and drove his car straight at it at the top of turn 2 there at the top of that little hill. So it was
he literally used the 77 to turn his car.
Right.
It's like just I wanted to point that out because that was a little crazy. But so we're going into Dover, and as we make that transition, I'm sure there's going to be more tempers flaring at the Monster Mile because it's one of those tracks that is not forgiving, not at all. And we got 4 drivers remaining on that in-season bracket. We got John Hunter Nemechek versus Ty Dillon. And everybody's bracket was crumbled up and thrown out the window week 1. But thanks, NASCAR, for making Atlanta the first week of the brackets. It's like, Vegas in their back pockets, like, we're just going to, we'll make Atlanta that first week and nobody will have a bracket.
They made so much money that first weekend. It's not even funny.
But, so we got Ty Dillon still, and hats off to Ty Dillon. I mean, he's doing what he's got to do. Him and his colleague racing team, gives them something to race for, right? I mean, yeah, sure, they're racing for wins every week. Everybody is, but he's got a realistic chance if he can pull out a good finish here at Dover. And he puts himself into the final 2 to win $1 million. That's insane. That's tremendous for Ty Dillon's career. Ty Gibbs and Tyler Reddick is the other matchup. And man, that's going to be the battle of the Toyotas there. That's going to be an interesting one because Ty Gibbs has really been stepping it up the last handful of weeks, and Tyler Reddick as well. Both drivers that are fighting really hard to get into the playoffs, let alone win a chance at $1 million here. But that's going to be really, really fun to see how these 4 drivers play out and who gets to go into the final 2 at Indianapolis the following week, where I can see that, there might be a clear advantage going into Indy with, who's coming out of the one bracket versus the other. So, we'll have to see how that plays out. But yeah, Monster Mile, 24 degrees of banking. So in the turns, and then 9 on the straightaways. I talk about that self-cleaning track. That's why. I mean, there's banking everywhere you step, except on the shoulder of this place, which is like this narrow to the wall. I mean, if you spin on the straightaway, it's hard not to hit the wall. I think back to that clip. I know if you're a race fan and you haven't been living under a rock in the last 20 years, you've seen this clip over and over when Dover week flies around, and I've seen it twice this week already. Jimmy Johnson spinning in qualifying and manages to not hit a thing. And it looked like he was going to crush the wall at least twice. And then everybody standing on pit road. Jeff Gordon throws his hands up just like that. That's one of those historic clips that I always think of when we come to Dover, because that's one of the rarest things that we've ever seen, right? I mean, you spin at Dover coming out of the turn or on the front stretch, you're hitting something. And he managed to keep a clean car. And a lot of those crew drivers who travel, the race teams, like that would be you. If your car spins in qualifying, you're going to have a late night, it's, that's not fun. You're a part of the road crew. So, he saved his road crew, a night out. They probably took him out for a steak dinner or something to save him the headache. But, yeah, I mean, that's just something you don't see at Dover. But yeah, 24 degrees of banking, 9 degrees on the straightaways. That's insane. It's a fast, mile-long concrete racetrack. Very, very fast track. I've been to Dover. I'm privileged to go to Dover many times and see many great races here. And as I sat around this place, there's really not a bad seat in the house, by the way. If you're a fan thinking of going, there's tickets still available. Click on them, go. It's going to be a good time. Saturday's going to be great. Weather looks really good Saturday. So go support the Xfinity Series, and you get to see the Cup do their thing with the practice and qualifying as well. So you get 2 series one day. It's great. But the racing here is just so crazy. And, whether I've sat down in turns 1 and 2, 3 and 4, or on the front stretch, again, no bad seat in this place. And you get that different perspective, but all around it's loud and it's fast. And it just comes at you from different angles, depending where you sit. But those bankings, man, I tell you how they rip out of those turns, and propel down those straights is just a thing of beauty. And there's some that have been historically better at it than others at Dover. It's a tough track, though. And I think it's the banking that really plays into what makes this place so tough. And then the concrete on top of it, because of how the track changes as the race goes on and how it gets rubber. And maybe that's, as a tire specialist, Matt, maybe that's something you can talk of, because, tracks rubber up all the time. But when a concrete track rubbers up, it kind of changes how the grooves are. And maybe you could speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, with being in a concrete track, there's been times that it has rubbered up really good, times that it hasn't. I think that the drivers are going to be searching for the max amount of grip. It all depends on if NASCAR is going to put down that PJ1, right? So if they got PJ1 down, the drivers are going to instinctively go right there. But also, some drivers will run the middle to higher lines up in the turns. With that, there is tire wear, but it's not a substantial amount. But what an amazing place that is! What an amazing racetrack! 24 degrees, like you said, 9 in the front. The drivers coming into the corners. You can see it. They come up, dive down into the corners, and when they come out, they're coming back up, lifting out of that seat, and you got to hang on. That is a wild ride.
Absolutely. And, you just spoke of the different approaches you can take in these corners because of how you can carry yourself down these front or back stretch, you can really diamond the corner here. And it's rare that you see that on an oval like this, but it's one of the places that it kind of makes sense where you can kind of let the car do some of the braking for you. And because you need to carry so much speed to get exit out of these turns, I've seen it to where the cars will kind of enter a little low, drift up, and then bring it right back down and kind of let, in that diamond shape and kind of let the track and the car do some of that braking for you. But the downside to that is if you miss, you pay dearly for it, and because you're likely going to get out of the groove, you're going to spin out. This track is not forgiving. Miles the Monster will reach out and grab you. And
Fast.
Yes,
the exits they're right there. If you're tight, you're going to smack it real hard.
Yeah, it's and it's not forgiving. And so these cars that will be on the track this weekend have the composite bodies, Matt. And how much would you say that helps at a place like this with that forgiving? If you don't hit too hard, you should be okay. But that's a fine line too, right?
Right, you're playing with fire on that, right? It definitely is nice to have the composite bodies. I was there when we had the steel bodies. I was pretty much, as I was coming into the Xfinity Series, we had the last of the steel bodies. And at that point, you just touch anything, it's going to ruin your day. The composite, they can rub, but you also got to think too of the crush panels that are underneath. Is that going to play damage? Because if you smack that wall with the right rear, you're going to have damage on the underside that most people don't really talk about. So you'll come down, make sure all the fenders are cleared, make sure nothing's hitting the tire, and you just continue on. But yeah, having a composite body definitely helps with hitting that wall. Because there's gonna be times you're gonna get a little tight, and you might just kiss it.
Yeah, and I know with the Cup car, it's even more sensitive than they have the composite bodies, but the steering suspension on those is even more sensitive than with these toe links. So yeah, they have to be careful, like you said, playing with fire. And somebody who's been very successful here at this track in the Cup Series is no longer in the field, so the rest of the Cup drivers get a little bit of a breathe, knowing that Martin Truex Jr. is not going to be in the field this week. He's did not unretire for this event. I thought, this would be a fun one for him to run a one-off. But he's one of the last three winners here. But last year was Denny Hamlin that took home the trophy. We mentioned Truex Jr., but also Chase Elliott has found victory lane here within the last 3 years. Historically, the top teams right now in the last handful of races here, JGR, HMS, so Hendrick Motorsports and Trackhouse have been really, really strong here. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out if that trend continues. I talk of the defending race champion, Denny Hamlin. This is a place that he's probably very much welcoming. He did not have a good Sonoma, hasn't really had a good last couple weeks. Of course, he missed Mexico for the birth of his son. Completely understand that aspect of things. But when he has been to the track, things haven't gone the way he thought they would. Now, he did have a good finish up at Pocono, but he did get bested by his teammate as well, a race that people thought, oh, Denny's going to come back and do Denny things. And it looked that way for a while until it didn't. Briscoe had a very strong car as well, had a fuel savings masterclass, and it all worked out. But I wanted to bring up, I normally bring up all the stats, and this is the time where I need to bring up stats. Before we get into the drivers' odds and the favorites for the weekend, I want to actually bring up stats. I normally bring them up for the track, and I can do that. We just talked of a couple winners that have been good here, and the teams that have been good here. So I gave you a bunch of drivers to think about in your head with JGR, HMS, Trackhouse, but I want to talk about the last 6 races, and because it really matters at this point. We're very, very close to the cut line for the playoffs, and that window of opportunity is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I look at the average finishes on the last 6 races, and I want to point out of the 12 locked in the playoffs already in the Cup Series, only 4 are in this top 10 here in the driver averages. So I want to go through that because I think that is an interesting thing nobody's talking about. Chase Elliott is number 1, having a great run. We know he did really well in Atlanta, having an average finish of 7.2, which bests the field. The second place one might shock everybody listening, but it really doesn't if you've been watching and paying attention. Ty Gibbs has an average finish of 8.5 in the last 6 races, second in all of NASCAR Cup Series. If you're watching and paying attention, it does not surprise you. He's been killer on the road courses, but he's also really turned it around. Don, you and I, we flat out called it out early in this season. It did not look good for that 54 camp and Ty Gibbs. They weren't getting the results everybody would expect with the JGR equipment. And for him being a champion in this sport, not in the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series, but we know he knows how to get it done. And when is that first win coming? Well, the consistency, I think, is part of what builds towards that. And Ty Gibbs has rose to the occasion lately, really making a strong push for the playoffs, trying to get himself there. Chris, sorry, go ahead.
For what it's worth, real quick, he's still behind the 8 ball as far as it goes with JGR. Yes, he's stepped up to the plate this season. We kind of put him on our own 5 Lug Racing hot seat, if you will. But he's still the only JGR car without a win, and he's still not in the playoffs right now. So he's not safe by any means.
He dug a deep hole to start the season, and it's tough to get out of those sometimes. But he has really been on a tear of late. We'll see if it continues at Dover because, again, I mean, he's got something going for him with the matchup with Reddick, and then also trying to make a push to get into the postseason. But so is Tyler Reddick. But third place in this last 6 races is Chris Buescher at 9.8. His teammate right behind him at 11.1 is Ryan Preece, another name outside the playoffs right now. Denny Hamlin at 11.6. And he missed one of those races. So, I mean, that average kind of could be different if he was in Mexico, but I will put him there because he's there in the top 10. Shane van Gisbergen is at a 12.7. Surprising stat, kind of, because he's got those wins. But again, he's still learning on these ovals. And, who wasn't wrecked in Atlanta? I mean, I think I got crashed in Atlanta. It was that bad. It was, and I was just sitting at home. But, he was in that. So, that plays into it as well. Tyler Reddick, we just mentioned with, the matchup with Ty Gibbs, he's got an average finish of 13th in the last 6 races. Very important for somebody who is got the best point situation as far as the non-win drivers going into this weekend and the next couple as we head towards the playoffs. But by no means is he safe, especially if they lose their charters and he misses a race. Yikes.
I got to elaborate on that too, because we're almost a year removed from when we were 4 races out of the playoffs last year. We were doing the show together, Ryan, and we were just talking about how safe Martin Truex Jr. was without a win, but 124-point cushion. And then all of a sudden he had a bad week. And then he had another bad week. And then he had a third bad week. And then he barely squeaks in. He had 124 points on the cut line, and he was scratching just to save his season by the regular season finale. So Tyler Reddick is not safe. All you Tyler Reddick fans out there, buckle up, because it's going to be a very stressful 6 weeks unless they can finally get over that hump and get that first win this season.
And then bring up the last 3 here in this top 10 of the last 6 races. Alex Bowman at 13.5, another driver who has not yet locked himself into the playoffs. AJ Allmendinger at 14.5, and then Chase Briscoe at 15.2, who is quietly having a really, really good season. Chase Briscoe with the move to JGR this year. And, it started off fast on the track for qualifying, but the finishes weren't there. Now they are. Just finished second in Sonoma, where he says that's his worst racetrack of the entire season, the entire schedule. And he's never been happier to finish second in his life. Direct quote from Chase Briscoe. that's the type of things. But only four who are locked into the playoffs. So, we always say the cream rises to the top, and we'll get to see that come playoff time. But these teams that are scratching and clawing and trying to find a way in, they're all rising to the top right now too. So I think it's interesting as we go into a track like Dover, a track that can be very unforgiving. There's no more room for mistakes. And, whether you're in the Cup garage, the Xfinity garage, or these trucks when they return, I mean, Matt, I'm sorry to speak on this in a way for you guys, but right now your playoff situation, you're plus 54. So you understand how a bad race or a bad couple weeks can absolutely not be good for the 00 camp. So you've got to be feeling a little bit of that pressure as well in the garage and at the track when you get there to perform.
I mean, as you get closer to that, final race of the regular season, I mean, the pressure mounts, especially if you're on that bubble or you're inside the bubble. Anything can happen, right? This is racing. Anything and everything is going to show up, and it's going to show its hand. I think it's also about how you're going to maintain your level-headedness and preparing for the races. Going into the race is, you just got to be mentally prepared. Hey, this is what it is. Our game plan. Let's execute the way we're supposed to. And whatever happens. We're going to work as a team, no matter what situation it is, and we're going to go and keep digging. And if that comes down to a wreck, well, we got to maintain that, or make sure that we get and maintain as many points as we can throughout the race.
Yeah, everything matters right now. And speaking of it matters, when we look at Vegas going into this week, what Vegas says matters sometimes too. They got Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin tied at the top of the list for the favorite this week at plus 500. That's no surprise to me, seeing either of those two names at the top of the list at this place, or at a track like this. Ryan Blaney at plus 700, William Byron plus 750, Christopher Bell getting some love at plus 1,000, Chase Elliott, Tyler Reddick, Ross Chastain, all tied at plus 1,200, Chase Briscoe, Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch to round it out. So you kind of get the feel for who, what, when, where. Kyle Busch was a name just mentioned. Good track for him historically. Maybe not as much in this RCR stuff yet, but he does know how to get around this place. Has definitely notched some wins in JGR cars here when he ran in the 18 car. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. It is now that time of the week. Matt, I know you really can't participate in this part, but Don and I got to give you the dark horse and the favorite this week. And I think that, when it comes to a dark horse here, I looked at the statistics, but I also look at how he's been running lately, and I'm going to go with Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman is a name that I definitely feel like could surprise people here at Dover and have a really strong showing. It's a track that he fares very well at statistically, and Hendrick Motorsports also runs well here statistically. So I believe he'll have the car behind him to do it. The question is, will he? So he's my dark horse for the week. Don, who you got as your dark horse?
Love the dark horse pick. It's really hard to bet against a team like Hendrick Motorsports. When you come to a place like Dover, they just unload fast and they stay fast all weekend long. Love the pick. Can't argue it. My pick is going to go from a different one. It's a guy that's really he actually let his emotions show a little bit more at Sonoma, and he got wrecked out. He's in that 4 car. And I'm talking about Noah Gragson. I'm picking him as my dark horse at Dover because I feel like he is talented enough to get a race like this done. We've seen Noah handle pressure situations really well. He's under a lot of pressure given his situation as far as the playoffs go. And I think he puts a lot of nuts into this bucket this weekend and really tries to have a good finish. I can see him getting it done here. He's extremely talented on concrete. We all know this. Let's see if he can get it to translate into the Cup car and get himself.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why not him, right? And I mean, they're due for a good run. Yeah, so I mean, can't hate on that. And if he had hopped into an Xfinity car this week, I'd put him as my favorite there. One of my favorites there, because he is good at this venture. He's run real well there in the past, especially in the Xfinity stuff, like I said. When it comes to my favorite this week, I'm going to go against the grain, but really not. I mean, I look at statistics a lot, and I look at how drivers tend to run in certain places, and it typically translates a lot of the time. Well, in the last 3 races here, my favorite has an average finish tied with somebody who has a win here. And like I said, Hamlin, Elliott, Truex, the last 3. This driver does not, but he's tied for an average finish with somebody who does win here at 5.7. He's also led 15.3% of the laps here in the last 3 races. Very, very strong showing. And the team as a whole is on fire right now. And he has a win on the season, so he's already locked into the playoffs. So it would help those that are on that bubble hunt. But yeah, my pick, Ross Chastain in the 1 car from Trackhouse Racing. Ross loves concrete. He does it well. Whether it's Nashville, whether it's here at Dover, it fares him well. And when it comes to this place, there's something special about this place for Ross Chastain and Trackhouse Racing. The average finishes just skyrocket. I look at all that stuff because I think it matters. And this weekend, I think Ross Chastain has a good chance to find victory lane.
I love the pick. It's really hard to bet against Chevy here, to be completely honest with you, unless you're in a JGR car and have the number 11 on your door, right? Because Denny Hamlin knows what the heck is going on. But I love the pick for Ross. One thing that'll be interesting to follow is, that whole Trackhouse thing really got weird once they announced the parting ways with Daniel Suarez. And then all of a sudden we find the 1 and the 99 getting a little bit too close for comfort at turn 11 at Sonoma. Daniel Suarez did not hide his emotions. He let the team communication know right away that he is not thrilled with the way that Ross came into that turn. Does that translate into a payback situation at Dover, especially knowing how strong Ross potentially can be here? That's a really interesting thing. I know Daniel Suarez still wears the TH on his shirt, but they are parting ways. So is Daniel going to hold that grudge? That'll be really interesting to follow as the next couple weeks play on. Do I think Daniel's going to do anything? Personally, no, but I'm not Daniel Suarez, so anything's possible. Love your favorite pick, bud. Ross Chastain is very more than capable of winning at any style of race. We have seen it over and over again now. As far as my favorite goes, I love that you go with the stats, and we said this before. I go with how teams are riding, right? I go with how their last 4 weeks or the last 5 weeks have been. Even though Denny Hamlin has missed a week, with the birth of their latest baby boy. But Denny Hamlin also had a 4th place finish at Chicago. I know he had a really bad Sonoma. I know they just want to put that behind him and forget about it. They got 3 wins there in the playoffs. They got bigger pictures. But Denny Hamlin is also very good about bouncing back after a rough weekend. And you're going to another Denny Hamlin playground. So give me the 11 JGR car. It would not surprise me to see him lift another trophy there at the Monster Mile.
Absolutely love it. And, you talk about stats. Well, Denny Hamlin has led the most laps here in the last 3 races at 17.3%. So he absolutely hit the nail on the head with that one. While he may not have the best average finish, his average finish is 9th. He's still absolutely somebody you have to think of when it comes to Dover, and somebody you're going to be battling for position late in this race if you're going to try to win. I definitely agree with the pick and why you went there. But who knows? That's why we have to tune in and watch. I know we're getting close on time. Matt, can't thank you enough for joining us again. I'm sorry.
We're forgetting something.
What's that?
You're forgetting. Race changed. We're in the middle of summer now. We're not in the fall. Temperatures are going to be different. You got to remember that.
Yeah.
It's going to be different. Who's maintain that heat? Who's going to be able to adjust to when the concrete's going to be super hot? Tires are going to be different. They're going to be slick. That's one thing as you were talking, the statistic wise, good. What's the air temperature? What's the track temperature? It's going to be a whole new ball game.
Very, very valid points, because I remember last year, for instance, at that race, it did get warm, but not like it's supposed to be this weekend. Now, the weather and overcast could play into effect this weekend as well. I don't want to say the R word, but there is a chance of the R word on Sunday. and some T-storms. So we'll have to see how that plays out as well. But you're absolutely right in the fact that this is, and that's one of the reasons why they moved this race, because this race had been rain plagued, with those April showers bring Mayflowers theory before.
Right.
They couldn't seem to get away from the rain here, and now they are in the summer. You're absolutely right, Matt, and thank you for pointing that out, because that is going to be something that changes the game a little bit here. And I know it's going to be hot on Saturday when you guys are in action. So we'll have to. I'll get that intel from you firsthand, how those tires are coming off the car, how they look. So, we'll have to see.
I have to elaborate on what Matt said too. You bring up an excellent point. Track is going to be so much different, but we also know certain drivers are able to handle those swings a lot better than other drivers. And I want to bring up Denny Hamlin again, because of all the drivers, that man can manage tires so well regardless of situation. And he's shown it time and time again. If Goodyear happens to put out a not so good tire that they put out before, he finds a way to make that tire last, and he's ended up with victories from it. So I love that you bring up that point. That is such a great point, and that'll be a lot of fun to watch, to see how this track changes throughout the weekend.
Yeah, and I, for one, you speak of tires, I, for one, hope we have a tire this weekend that has some degradation to it, because that only just adds to the dynamic of the race in itself. And I always like when it leaves the teams having to scramble a little bit, but it also makes those drivers have to manage what they have, because that's an art form. The fans like to see races like that too, because it really lets the cream rise to the top, and that's racing. So, but yeah, I was going to give you your closing statements, but you brought it here with the weather change and, the time of the year. And that is absolutely spot on, Matt. And I'm glad you pointed that out. But thank you so much again for bringing your insight to Five Lug Racing. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you here. Look forward to seeing you at the track again this weekend. And, it's always good, my man. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Oh yeah, man. Always good to see you at the race. And, hey, real quick, we just keep Texas in mind through all the stuff that they're going through, all the flooding that's going on. And, that's where I'm from. And just be with those people and pray for those people down there in the Texas area.
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Matt, thank you for everything that you have done and continue to do to hang out and be here with and for Five Lug Racing. We are headed to Dover. It's going to be a really exciting weekend. Everybody that made it to the end of the show, thank you so much. Drop your favorites, drop some dark horses down there. Talk to us. Let us know what you want to talk about. Get down in their comments. Let's engage. Let's have some fun. But to everybody that made it to the end of our episode, thank you so much. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Y'all have a good night.